Hello, my name's Peter Fleming and I'm a leader at Sevenoaks District Council, a town famously not ready for sushi. We have a bit of a rebellious spirit. William Shakespeare called us the filth and scum of Kent, something that we wear proudly. My chief executive calls me an unreasonable man, but as a politician, I think we are always against the clock. I prefer to call myself relentless, and I'm relentless in the pursuit of lots and lots of different ideas all at the same time. And I guess for me, this subject is pretty much all about context, particularly when we look at the world around us. We're now past the 10th anniversary of the largest taxi firm in the world owning no vehicles. The largest restaurant group in the world cooks no food. The largest sellers of music are now all virtual and online. And the largest retailer in the world, in part, most of the stock it sells is on behalf of somebody else. And even banks have got in on that act, with PayPal and others offering an entirely digital way of doing banking. But I guess that leaves us as councils, who knows where. What real change have we seen in that digital space over the last 10 or 15 years? And I guess what I'll be talking about is a really quick canter through what we could do, what we might do, and what we perhaps should be doing. We need to ask ourselves some what ifs. What if we celebrated difference as a sector? We challenged assumptions. Don't do things just because they're all the way that we've always done them. Potentially the most valuable individual in your organization at any level is the newest person, the one that walks around asking, why do we do things like that? We should be abandoning activities that don't add value or make life better or easier for our residents and customers. We should be automating bravely, automating those manual, repetitive and labor-intensive processes. And we should be putting simplification at the heart of everything we do, removing complication, both for our staff, but also, again, for our residents. We need to be building for needs and not necessarily wants. I love this quote from the senior vice president at Cirque du Soleil. How can people tell you what you want if they haven't seen it before? If we ask them what they want, we'd end up doing Swan Lake every year. And as councils, are we pushing the boundaries of what is possible going forward? And we need to look at how do we do this? You know, it's very simple to package all of this stuff up, but how are we going to move it forward? Well, it's going to take leadership both at our political and managerial levels. Dreams don't work unless you do. You've really got to want to deliver this change. And we've got to get away from fearing failure. And that's really hard in the public sector space where failure often has cost a lot of money. So we need to learn how to fail fast and fail cheaply. We need to move away from sort of binary solutions and look at how we can join those together. We need to be confident of the fact that actually we've got lots of things going on. Unlike many businesses out there, we are providing multiple services across multiple platforms. And we've always got to remember that at the heart of this, we have a ticking clock, particularly as political leaders. I love this very TikTok, and it really spoke to me.
At my brother-in-law's funeral on Saturday, got up and gave the most beautiful eulogy, and he said, you know, when they were like arguing about budget or scope, or, you know, because he was a big visionary and he had a team of people who would have to materialize and inevitably have questions about like how, and he would always sort of push back and be like, okay, I know you're saying no, but what if we could? And so that has been in my mind, like, why not have that be my own ethos? Why don't I have that be like lives on and gives Joe his legacy? I know it's never been done. I know that somebody tried and it didn't work. But what if we could?
I think that is such a powerful possibility. So many of us are in organizations where, things have maybe been tried in the past and not worked, or there is a real sense of failure. And actually asking that question, but what if we could, really leads us to beginning to try and understand what the potential is out there. It's going to mean cultural change within our organizations, both with members and officers. This is a quote from my chief executive: "A customer is anyone who isn't me." And that's about bringing everybody on board, including those services within a council that support the movement to doing things in a different way. It's about a whole team approach, bringing both departments, but also that member and officer core together towards one conclusion. It's about looking at risks, about our own personal risk appetites, but also trying to understand what the corporate or council's risk appetite is as an organisation. And it's about, trying to find those individuals that are struggling and supporting those in their journey as well. And of course, wherever we get to on this journey, there's always another peak over the horizon. And of course, this last year in particular has been a huge both opportunity, but a huge difficulty for many of the services that we provide. I'm a real believer that we should focus on customer service and, things that are acceptable within councils and the way that we provide services in councils would never be acceptable in the outside world. Does the traditional 9 to 5 work for either residents or staff? And I think this last year in particular has given us an opportunity to really think about that 9 to 5 and whether actually we can change that. Does the removal of the ability to speak to a human being enhance the services we provide? I'm a strong advocate that it doesn't, and we should keep the ability to both have face-to-face and voice-to-voice communications with our residents. At the end of the day, we provide people-to-people services. And we need to look at those golden rules for customer service as well and see if they're embedded in everything that we provide. Keeping the phone number is a particular mantra for me when I talk to councils, some of whom have sort of wiped their phone number off the face of the earth, taken it off their websites and made it almost impossible for people to contact them. Why is it that online transactions for councils are often absolutely terrible when actually, I won't buy from a company if I can't do it via, PayPal, a really easy or another really easy method? We need to obviously build for people with all devices and still for those with none. We need to understand around our comms, for instance, that Karen on Facebook is now more powerful than our comms department in terms of reputation and our ability to get our messages out there. And most importantly, we need to make sure that we build at a human scale. We often, think about sort of corporate systems, and the customer or the end user is right at the end of that. And we need to start with the end user rather than end with them. I guess the future of work, and we could have talked about this probably 12 months ago and had a really different conversation, but I think coronavirus has had a massive impact, and actually employees are calling for change. An amount of research has already taken place, and employees believe that 50-50 is the perfect split between working remotely and in an office. This was taken about June last year, and those numbers may have shifted a little bit, but I think an amount of flexibility will be expected by the majority of staff, particularly office-based staff, going forward. 70% of employers at that point believe that hours-based contracts should be scrapped in favour of results delivered, which is, a fundamental change for councils. And I wonder how that might play out. 60% of employees claim that their technical skills had improved since they had been working from home, and almost 70% of employees want to focus on developing new digital skills after the pandemic has subsided. Are we ready for to get those skills out to our staff? So we need to think about some of that, but also, really interesting, the workplace is changing. Over the next few years, the generations will we'll be having multiple generations in the workplace at the same time. But actually, new generations coming forward, there is a significant change in expectations. A university in America, a PhD student was teaching. All she could see was the Apple logos flashing back at her. She didn't know whether anybody was paying any attention. What she found afterwards, though, was that students had self-organized into groups. They were all taking notes onto a single document, which gave a really, really rich resource for those that had been unable to attend the lecture, but also when it came to revision, they had a fantastic resource. And actually, students in particular are working much more collaboratively than they might have done in the past. And are we setting up our teams in that way? I think of something like Fortnite, which is, obviously a global game where, many young people are working, to an end goal, but with other people remotely. Are our organizations ready for Gen Z to enter the workplace? Are we giving them the skills that they're going to need? One selected candidate to a council chose not to take up the job when they found out the council didn't use Slack. I mean, really interesting ideas around whether the platforms we're using are going to be able to attract employees. And of course, none of us could have predicted the growth in home or remote working over the last year. We have an awful lot of data as councils, but much of it is dumb. How do we connect that together and make sure that it's usable across the piece? Many councils, this is New York's open data platform, get that data out there. There are people who will take on board the production of apps, the production of other things for you. I particularly like this one. This is a primary school catchment area app that was done just by an individual who went out there and collated all the data and put it out there in an app, really useful to residents. And apps are key. Often they are the solution to some of our problems. This is Street Bump in America, which uses the accelerometer in mobile phones to measure potholes. And again, think about that human scale. What can we do at a human scale? There are loads of opportunities out there as well. I love this one. This is around parking and using the idea of surge pricing to maybe tackle climate change by reducing people all coming to a car park at similar times. If we could use surge pricing to do that, perhaps starting our own electric car clubs as councils, using white label stuff that's out there and putting them in cars, and using some of those Amazon ideas around other customers who bought this product. Well, how about when somebody comes in for housing benefit and we know that they are going to need other services going forward, that we actually make sure that we are offering those in what I call a golden conversation, using tech to bring together all of that data so that conversation is as rich as possible at the first point of contact. Much of that is to be continued. Lots of stuff going on in councils across the country. But in the meantime, I think we need to build organizations that are both questioning, where we've built the skills of our staff, are as exciting as possible going forward. Not afraid of difference, a little bit revolutionary. And if you'd like to continue that conversation, you can find me on all of my socials. Thank you so much for listening.